Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Community FC. We've got another episode of the Roundup review. This is going to be episode 9. As I look over at my notes, I need to all these numbers. I need to remember which one it is. They're coming thick and fast. We're nearly in double digits, like we said last week. And also, obviously, it's midweek matches, so you might have felt like you just watched the last video, and you basically have because we've had to squeeze another one in before the next game week happens, which is literally tomorrow. As we're recording this on Friday night. So this is going to also be game week 14 for all you Premier League managers out there trying to keep your FPL teams up to date. I've got a different guest with me, but a friendly face of the channel. We've got Jamie with us today. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. It's Friday, that's always a good thing. Kicking off in the weekend and tons of footy, so can't really complain, to be honest.
Exactly that.
We'll get onto it pretty much straight away, but some slightly better news for my team again for a change. So that's good. So yeah, we're going to go through the games. Some of them we have a lot to talk about, some of them we don't. Obviously, there's a weird schedule this week with match of the day being the only thing, not a match of the day two or anything like that. So some of the games we've had to just watch highlights for, or obviously probably watching our own games when other ones are on at the same time. So we will try to give you as good a breakdown as we can. So starting off, I've got a running order up. I'm actually going to kick off for a change with my game. And not for a negative reason, which is great. So there was the most goals in it, and it probably was the most exciting game of the weekend. Midweek matches. So what do I want to say about this? I mean, there's a lot to say about this game. I'll try to keep it fairly concise as I can, but I've got quite a lot of points. I mean, you kind of have to start here because it was the start of the match, really, the biggest controversy that, as the episode says, never seen it before is on the thumbnail, and that was what most people were saying. You've never seen this happen in the way it's happened, which is crazy. But that's football. There's crazy stuff that happens. I actually was texting Jamie at the time, so we're kind of aligned on it now. But we'll both talk about it, and we might not agree 100%. But there we go. So for anybody that wasn't watching the game, basically, David De Gea collapsed in the box after feeling some contact. The contact was from his own player. It was actually Fred, which kind of raked the back of his almost like Achilles area with his studs, which, yes, is painful. He went down. Fred's kind of instantly signaled. The lino's actually looking. The ref hasn't seen it. Ball comes out after a header straight to Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe bangs it past an open goal with De Gea on the floor. The first thing that I'll say, and again, I try to take my United hat off as much as I can when I do the Roundup reviews and be less biased. By the letter of the law, that is a goal. And I still stand by that, and I'm sure Jamie will in a minute. That I was fuming. Literally, I literally was sitting on the sofa and didn't move for about 15 minutes because I was just seeing red and fuming inside and processing it. But the ref hasn't blown the whistle, so there's nothing they can do about that in that sense. They kind of have to give the goal. And they were talking about, fair play, like in other situations where teams are giving it back. If you're an Arsenal player, there's no way you're giving it back. I'm putting that out there as well straight away. Like, it wasn't them hurting another player and then it led to something. It was literally his own teammate that has done it. As I'm sure Jamie's going to come on to, which was saying about, if you're in pain, the first thing you should be obviously trying to do, though, on a football pitch is make sure that the ball's gone out before anything's happening. So De Gea goes down and he hasn't tried to stay up, and then that's a result of it. So that is a aspect of that as well. So if he stayed on his feet, maybe it wouldn't have happened. I do have to say quickly that if it happened slightly further up the pitch, yes, they might have played on and played the advantage if it was, open play or something, but the refs would have seen it. And that's really where the difference is. I think most people are kind of in agreement that you see it. Martin Atkinson has the whistle to his lips, and then Smith Rowe hits it, and he kind of pulls it away from his lips and sees it go in. If he blew the whistle then there would have been a whole VAR check, and who knows what would happen. That would have been a whole different story. But because the whistle hasn't gone, that's what happens. That is the goal. Anyway, I'm not going to touch on that anymore. Jamie can in a minute. That's just my piece on it. So that was 1-0 to Arsenal. As I said, I was fuming. All the United players were absolutely fuming, rushing over to him as he was giving it and stuff. So, but we moved on. It was the right decision. So United pulled one back, and actually, even though it was Fred that touched De Gea, Fred actually had a really good game, and he had a really good game last week too. He takes his up and downs, and we always joke about Pastor Fred, as he's known as a United fan. we're always like, why can't we have that Brazilian Fred? When he plays for Brazil, he's an absolute different beast. Like, he has all the energy in the world, but he seems to just make all the right decisions and to get all the good tackles in. He thinks about stuff a lot more. And I've always said I understand why, even when he's had bad games, why we have Fred in that midfield. But he had a good game, and obviously got involved with some of the assists on the goals. Technically 2 assists if you count the tackle that he got the pen off before as well. So fair play from him. But yeah, we got back into it, obviously with Fernandez, which is great to see him get on the score sheet again. And then it was kind of a really, really exciting game for a neutral. Obviously, it was the classic United Arsenal games very rarely don't deliver. They're very hyped matches with a lot of intensity, even back from the, me growing up with the Vieira Keane days. They just always deliver with some exciting play. But yeah, so obviously we've got another goal. And then Ronaldo gets one, which is obviously his 800th goal for club and country, which is insane. And then, we get, they actually get one back. I feel it was very lackluster from us, and Arsenal just kind of squeezed it through and showed some attacking flair again and got it in. And then we go back and obviously get the penalty. I mean, I don't think anyone's also going to argue the Odegaard challenge 100% just chops Fred. It's a Stonewall pen. Like, I don't think the ref. And again, the only thing I will say on that is I'm not really about bashing refs, but, if he'd reacted quicker, he might have stopped that first goal. And also, he doesn't give that literally straight away. He's like shrugging it off like absolutely not. And then luckily VAR does give the correct decision this time. So it's how VAR should be used. And then obviously Ronaldo bangs it down the middle again for another one. And we get another Sue, and everybody enjoys that very much. I just want to point out quickly as well. I actually had the stats up for the goals versus games. So it's 1,097 games and 801 goals. Like, just ridiculous levels. Everyone said it. Even like Shearer was like, I did an article. It's just like, it's ludicrous, mate. Like, those numbers are just dumb. And yeah, that was really the game. Like, there was a lot of controversy around lots of decisions. There was a lot of strong challenges going in, but that's what you want from a Arsenal United game, and that's what you want from those big clashes. The only last thing I'll say, I know I've droned on a lot, I apologise, always do on my team, is that something that was quite shocking after the game, which some people didn't realise was happening until it happened, because they kept it quite quiet, was obviously Michael Carrick has stepped down and has left the club. So he kind of held these talks. They said when Rangnick had come in, he'd already kind of made his decision. And was staying because of Ole and stuff like that. And he's made that the right decision. It's not because Rangnick's coming in or anything to do with that. He wants to spend some time with his family. And he's been at United for 15 and a half, nearly 16 years. So he's deserving some time down with his family. And who knows, maybe management is on the cards for him after doing everything he's done. I saw a journalist actually say in one of the interviews, they're like, it's not really a bad thing on your CV, is it, to have unbeaten Manchester United manager on your CV. And to be fair, it's only 3 games, but to be fair to him, I'm not trying to be like, oh yeah, that'll be, but it was 3 big games and lots of massive points he got for us to put us on that right trajectory. So, club legend, lots of people under the years, I think, underrated him a little bit, but that's a whole different story. But yes, that's a big thank you to Carrick for everything he's done there. But yeah, I'll pass it over before I drone on too much to Jamie.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have the same level of insight as you do, being a rival fan. But I watched the game. Very exciting game. As you say, United Arsenal games have always had something about them over the years. The Keane Vieira battles back in the day, the Martin Keown and Van Nistelrooy over that penalty way back in the day as well. And yeah, this was no different. It was super exciting. As you say, the first goal definitely should have been given as a goal. And I think the right decision was made in the end. Mm-hmm. Potentially it could have been dealt with better by the officials. They could have been quicker to it. It's always a bit different. It's a bit of a grey area when the ball's in the box, keeper goes down. But for me, the fact, those challenges hurt. But first and foremost, if my keeper had done that, I'd have been fuming at him, because he got up straight away afterwards and he was fine. Yeah. So he couldn't have been in a bad way, realistically. To just see the danger out first and then get treatment, do whatever. It's not like it wasn't a head injury. It didn't put him out of the game. I would have expected him to get up and just see the ball out, because that's a shot. He's just going to catch that. Yeah. He's going to catch that and then relieve the pressure and then do whatever. It doesn't matter the grand scheme of things. You won the game. It really doesn't matter.
I was going to say that's the only kind of silver lining where I think it will be let go a little bit. If it hadn't been and had it been affecting the result, then that would have been a whole different story. I think.
100%. And I think De Gea would have been subject to a little bit more criticism if that was the case. But I mean, he's been so important for you recently.
Yeah, one player of the month.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's been so important for you throughout his career, but especially so recently, there's been a bit of a resurgence in his form, which I'm sure you're very, very happy with. He looks like almost De Gea of old, really. Recently,
I think it was the Dean Henderson pushing him again. I think someone rivaling him for that place, and then obviously it not working out for Henderson with an injury and COVID and lots of other things. But De Gea really the same with Luke Shaw, like someone to push him into getting that form again and really just taking his game to that extra level again.
Yeah, exactly that. Fred, I think Fred had a great game, as you said. I think Fred is probably the most scapegoated player I've ever seen. United always seem to have one. You had Pogba for a while, who was always, whenever you lost, he always got the brunt of it. Even though it's realistically not his fault. It's just, big expectations.
Ronaldo's also the problem, mate.
Yeah, apparently so. Which is, I'll get onto that in a minute. That's just ridiculous. But yeah, you did well for the goal. Did well for your first goal. That was a big goal for Bruno as well.
Yeah.
Realistically, it shouldn't have been a big goal for Bruno. I think he's been subject to a bit of harsh criticism recently as well. Like the past few games, I think you can say that he's been a little bit below par. But
Absolutely.
over the course of the season, I don't think he's been bad at all.
His numbers are still up there. I think he's still got the most created chances in the Premier League or something stupid. And yes, I'm not going to defend him like entirely. Like some big games, he does go missing a little bit. But also people that say that, I don't think watch the full game and match today might not show it if that's the case. Because even if he has an absolutely awful game, there's a 10-15 minute period where he pings like a ball that makes us get a goal or does something. So he's always influencing it somehow. So yeah, I think it's a bit too harsh. He does get criticised.
Definitely. I think I thought that was a very good goal. I thought the goal was really well worked. Great football. There are a few similar goals, like straight after that. Well, in the second half, Ronaldo scores his first one. That it's literally, he's inevitable, isn't he? Realistically, he's inevitable. I think that is goal scoring now at its finest. His positioning for that first goal. That second goal of yours, first goal of his, was superb. It was so good. The way he held his run, made the run first, held it, so the ball cut back to him. It was so good. And then 2 minutes later, Arsenal got the other end to score the exact same goal.
Yeah, literally.
And then obviously the penalty incident, which 100% was a penalty.
Stonewall.
100% was what a stupid decision from Odegaard. Just tied it up. And then he does. I don't understand what he was trying to do. He's never going to win the ball
because he effectively scissors him as well at the same time, which is how I don't understand how the ref hasn't called it. But it's like it's not just like he's got the ball or anything. He's literally just gone through the back of him and scissored him. I'm like, it's so obvious.
As soon as you go in from that angle, you're just inviting the ref to blow his whistle and point for a penalty. You're just inviting, especially nowadays. A lot of attacking players are going to look for contact anyway. I'm not saying Fred did. That was 100% a foul. Yeah. But a lot of players are going to look for contact there. You're just asking for it. If you go in like that, at that angle, you're never going to win the ball. But overall, I really enjoyed the game. I think Arsenal had some good spells. I think United had some really good spells. I think especially in the first half, actually. After that Smith Rowe goal went in, I think the Bruno goal, I think it was coming, the way you were playing.
The reason that I put that down to it, sorry to interrupt you again, is one thing that two of our major players thrive off is people booing them or the stuff not going their way, and it's Bruno and Ronaldo, and you saw how mad they were. It was almost like they're gonna have some involvement in this game just because they're literally like, Ronaldo is literally fueled by hate most of the time. Like he's like, you don't think I can do it, so I'm gonna do it, and it just, you knew it was coming.
Exactly. He's got like the biggest ego in football for good reason, and he uses it every week in, week out. He uses it to his advantage. Just touching on what you were saying, like obviously breaking 800 goals, it's on 801 now. Man. The numbers are stupid. Some players don't even play that many games, and he's scored 800 goals. Do you know what I mean? And obviously quite fitting because we've had the whole Ballon d'Or debates going around over the past week. But I was just thinking about it. The fact that we've seen two players at the same time, we've seen their entire careers, and they are putting up the same kind of numbers, the level of performance week in, week out for that many years. and share the stage together. Like, it's just incredible. We're never ever going to see anything like this again.
And that's what we always say. Like, you and me have different opinions on who the greatest player of all time is. That's fine. We have good debates about it quite often, actually. But the thing you've touched on there, and most people completely forget in this scenario, instead of dissing the other one, absolutely listen to other people's opinions, and you're entitled to your own opinion. But like, when you take a step back, just enjoy that you're seeing two of the greatest players of all time, probably will be the two greatest players of all time, at the same time, doing that week in, week out.
Exactly. Their peaks were the highest thing I've ever seen, I think. I don't think I've ever seen two players. Obviously, I was a little bit young to see the likes of R9 Ronaldo. Obviously, I know what phenomenon he was, but he had already had his injury troubles and stuff like that by the time I was watching football. So he was sort of not on the decline just yet, but he obviously was past his absolute best. So the next best two, definitely these two. Well, I say next best. They are the best I've ever seen. I don't think there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think it's they're just extraordinary numbers again, and I love the fact that that when Ronaldo looked like he was going to come off, there was right at the end. Obviously, you're watching, you saw it there. They're like, "Oh, was he coming off because he's done something? Is he, or maybe he's not moving as properly and stuff?" And actually, he's probably just more tired, because they were talking about this whole pressing thing and how he's going to fit in Ragnick's system. And actually, he normally does it like 16% or something, and he did it like 25% or something the game that he was there watching, which I thought was funny. But at the same time, you see that Jesse gets the ball and Bruno and Ronaldo are just busting a gut to get in that box, and Ronaldo's like just absolutely just being a train, just absolutely ramming it in. Then you're like, Jesus, mate, you're 36 and you just played most of the game, scored 2 goals already, and you're still doing that. And it's like, and then I saw someone actually in the comments on something being like, why does Ronaldo always go down the tunnel instantly? He does it on international breaks, and everyone was like, because he instantly gets in an ice bath to try and recover for the next game, because he's got to look after himself like that because he's a lot older. But anyway, we'll move on. We've chatted far too long about United, but I think the main takeaway from that is obviously massive goals for Ronaldo, big points for United, great result for Carrick, and a good send off for him. But the main thing I think is you're never ever going to see that again in football, or very unlikely to see that exact scenario again. So that was a crazy thing to see. So we'll move on. The next game, still tons and tons of goals. I'll let you kick off on this one, which was the Merseyside derby.
Yeah. I mean, I expected an emphatic Liverpool win, and that's exactly what happened. I'm not going to lie, I am very scared of Liverpool right now.
I think everyone is.
Barring injuries, so if they keep their key players fit for the whole season, I back them to win the title. I just don't see how they're going to drop many more points. Obviously it's very much a 3-horse race right now, and the top 3 sides are performing very, very well. But I guess the pessimism in me being a fan of one of those sides, I just worry about the other sides a little bit more. Like Liverpool are unbelievable right now. You can't write off City, like write off at your peril. We've seen that so many times. Yeah, but Liverpool right now, the fluidity they're playing with, the confidence they're playing with, the where the goals are coming from. I know Salah is their main source of goals, but it's coming from all over the park right now. The creativity from the back, breaking the lines with Van Dijk, the full-backs bombing on as they always do, the energy in midfield, they're scary. They seriously are scary. And it's funny that people are writing them off because they had a slightly bad season last season. And I say slightly bad, they had so many injuries. If they didn't, they'd probably be right up there. But it was like men against boys this game. Everton looked so bad. And that's being kind. Everton looked awful. But Liverpool looked so good. So it's probably a combination of the two, really. Salah, we're talking about Ronaldo's level of consistency. Salah's level of consistency recently over the past 2-3 years has been stupid. He is just getting better and better as well. He's unbelievable. He's unplayable right now. His confidence is sky high. You just never doubt him in front of goal anymore. You see him running through on goal. It doesn't even need to be a chance. It could be a half chance, and you're like, he's going to score here. And
some of the angles he puts them in, like when he hits it across the goal, it's like the tiniest angle. It just goes in. You're like, it's Salah. Yeah.
He's a giant. That's the thing. It's just become normal.
Yeah.
It's just become normal now. People are just like, oh, Salah scored another worldie. Yeah, fine. Salah scored another 2 goals. Like it's normal. Like that happens all the time.
Everyone captaining him in FPL, it's literally like if he doesn't get at least a goal and an assist, you're like, what's he even doing? Is he does he get taken off? Like, what's he doing? Like, because you expect more from him every game. It's mental.
Yeah, 100%. Surely the writing on the wall is on the wall for Rafa right now. What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I'll jump to that. Like, that's kind of the end of my notes. But I heard an interesting story that again, some of the more disreputable tabloids, shall we say, they were saying that it was Rafa's going to go in the next week, or they were saying that there's some kind of board level or managing director or someone else might be on the chopping board as well. The main thing I wanted to say on that was surely Rafa has to go soon because Everton are in serious trouble. I know they've had their injuries, and their injury list has been horrendous this season, like really, really horrendous. And I've said that a couple of episodes. You've got to give them some slack, but they did have Gray back. They did have Decore back, this game, and they did just get absolutely trashed. The main thing, the last point on the Rafa thing I wanted to make was what I've put down here. Injuries aside, it was always a risk. Would you tarnish your Liverpool reputation to go to the rival club to then get sacked maybe before Christmas for half a season? That's going to be a big blow and really hard to take if you're Rafa, right? Because, you're literally getting, you lost the love of a team that really did love you and has so much love. We have a really close mate who's a Liverpool fan, and they were always speaking high praises of, Rafa Benitez. Mm-hmm. But you're literally getting death threats from the team you're joining for joining a different side of Merseyside, and then to have it end that way would just be awful. And what to say about the game? I've put here, I was like easily Liverpool could have been 2-0 in 3 minutes. Like it was, and that's one of the scariest things. And maybe that's just because also United are the worst starting team in the Premier League by a mile. We take about 10 minutes to even kick off, and usually a goal to go behind before we even start playing football. But Liverpool starts so quick. They start the quickest out of any team. Like every week, I was saying on the podcast on the Roundup review last week, I turned on the game late, like a couple of minutes late, and it was already Liverpool 1-0 up, and you're like, I'm sorry, what? Like it just happened so fast. You're like, what's going on? They start so fast. Liverpool, like they're not, they have their weaknesses. Like they're completely switched off for the Gray goal, like just an easy one to come in. But it is easy to become more lax when you're just smashing teams and playing the way you are. Mm-hmm. So that and then Seamus Coleman went, okay, well I'll gift you a goal back then, shall I? And gifted Salah's goal back as well. So that's really what I've got for them. Like it was more the Rafa stuff. Like people come back from injury help, but they have to pick up a win, not just points. They have to pick up a win ASAP. Like Newcastle, they're in serious trouble. The only thing I was going to put at the end was a quick stat as well I saw, which was Liverpool have scored 43 goals in 14 matches, which is averaging 3 goals a match. That's ridiculous numbers, as we said. So good luck with your team at the top. I'm looking for top 4 if lucky at the moment. We don't have to think about that.
That's terrifying. And just going back to what you were saying about Rafa, mm-hmm. Joining obviously Liverpool's biggest rivals, pretty much. I don't think he's any stranger to that, really. He did it, not as big as Liverpool, Everton, but obviously came to Chelsea as interim boss for a season back in the day, and our fans notably don't like him. I didn't like him. We had some pretty feisty affairs in the Champions League and stuff back in the day when Rafa was boss, and people were bringing banners to his first few games saying, "We don't want you here." Mm-hmm. I don't agree with that. I'd back whoever's in charge. And by the end of it, I think he won a lot of people over because he did all right. He won the Europa League with us, and he did all right. So I don't think that phases him really. I think he's quite strong-willed. I don't think he really cares about that. The only thing that I would say that is detrimental to Everton is that it just gives them another thing for them to be grilled by Liverpool fans by.
Literally,
Everton fans they just can't get a rest. It's been Liverpool since the dawn of time have dominated that derby, and they're just going to carry on doing that. And now they've got another string to their bow. So
I mean, I hate to use him, but the perfect way I sum up Everton normally, and sorry to any Everton fans out there, is Jamie Carragher, boyhood Everton fan. Instantly goes to Liverpool and is like one of their biggest club legends of all time. Mm-hmm. So we'll end it there, shall we? Before we get too far, the next game, I'm sure, our regular Roundup man Rich would be loving to talk about is the Southampton Leicester game. Obviously, he was saying that he didn't like the idea of Leicester at all. He especially didn't like the idea of Leicester midweek. But 2-2. And actually, there was some real big positives from Hasenhüttl side and the Saints this week. A couple of things I put down. The first goal, I just wanted to actually, it wasn't even a shout out to Ben Rek that scored it. I think it was the first one, but it was actually Schmeichel's save, because the initial save's a wonder save, and then it just is one of them. It's tapped in after, and it is what it is. But fair play to Schmeichel for doing that. The goal, the goal that Southampton conceded afterwards, I've kind of put, it was Johnny Evans that's scoring, and I was like, could the keeper do better? Could the defense do better? Probably both better, and that's kind of been Southampton's weakness, that they one, which I'll come on to in a minute, is that they can't, or might as well come on to it now, they can't keep a lead, and Richard said it every single week, like they can't keep a lead and they just leak a goal. And also they quite often just have silly little defensive mistakes that then let a goal in, and then it completely ruins their game plan. But on the same side, I think that I kind of put that's their kryptonite, same old, lose the lead. But McCarthy, again, he's had some bad weeks, but in recent weeks, as Rich said, he's been doing really well, and actually, a great save against Harvey Barnes, I think, actually saved him the points. So he's redeeming himself massively, and proving himself. Maybe that threat of him becoming the understudy and then looking to bring someone else new in is doing what we said about De Gea and Luke Shaw and those kind of players. So fair enough. James Maddison, I mean, we talked about it last week as well. I try not to repeat too much, but since Youri Tillmans has been injured and he's kind of come back in the team after some issues he had on and off the pitch, he's in that purple patch again. I think it's now 6 in 5 or something that he scored. No, 4 and 6, I think it is, for goals. And he looks back to his old James Maddison form before Youri Tillmans really picked up the limelight, or sometimes with him. It was the Madders show to Vardy, wasn't it? So that's going to be really good to see if you're a Leicester fan, because you've been missing that little spark, or that little go. Although you would say that they have kind of done a bit of a slump, and they kind of had this high, and now they're really starting to get draws and lose a lot of points there. One more thing, I just thought Rich also mentions Teller doesn't get starts that he sometimes should, and I thought not necessarily the whole game. I think got taken off kind of 60, 70 minutes, but I thought Nathan Teller had a really good early start to the game, especially, so that's a shout out to him. And then before I hand it over to you, we're going to talk about this a few times, and we're going to pick up on it in the end, so won't go too much into it, but this was one of the first of 2 games this week, sadly, where there was medical issues at the ground. So the game was stopped for 30 minutes. I believe it was cardiac arrest again from somebody in the crowd, and they were obviously helped in the stands and then taken off to hospital later. But that is obviously not something we want to see about football games at all. We will touch on that more later, but also I just wanted to mention, in terms of the players as well and the game, that when something like that happens at a game, obviously it's going to affect the crowd, the players and everything, and the staff. So that's always something to take into account on those kind of games. I mean, have you got I've got anything to add to the Southampton match?
Yeah, a little bit actually. First thing I wrote was not quite the 9-0 hammering that we saw a couple of years ago. I know you alluded to that earlier. I thought the game was pretty balanced. It could have kind of swung either way. I felt Leicester had some big chances at the end, and McCarthy made some great saves and kept them in the game. Southampton, I think, are a great watch. I think their style of play is so enjoyable to watch, and it has been since Hasenhüttl came in.
Too.
Exactly that, and obviously they've added the likes of Livramento from Chelsea, who's been a revelation for them. I don't know what it is about right backs and Chelsea, but it seem to produce these right backs from the academy that are. Well, there's another one later on that I'm going to touch on as well. But I think that their table position doesn't really reflect their gameplay. But as you say, you're not going to go far in the Premier League if you conceded too many goals, and that's unfortunately been the case for Southampton this season. It's been like kind of the story of their season so far. But yeah, I enjoy watching Southampton. I like the two, Adams and Armstrong up front. I think it works well. I think they complement each other pretty well. And then they've got Armando Broja to come off the bench as well, and he's been very good for them as well. Obviously, he's only on loan. We'll see what happens with that at the end of the season. But Leicester. A lot of people would have tipped Leicester for sort of being in and around the European spots come the end of the season, and that looks in jeopardy right now. I mean, they're 10th in the league. They, over the past few weeks especially, their form's not been great. We played them, Chelsea played them a few weeks ago and it was so one-sided. It's unbelievable. It was a game that I was really nervous for, and I'm worrying for Leicester right now. I really am. I don't see them breaking into even the top 6 come the end of the season with the way it's going at the moment. Obviously, it's still pretty close, so a few results here and there could change that, but they just don't. It doesn't look like the confidence is there with them, really. Obviously, James Maddison's playing well right now, as you say. Scored a great goal last night, actually. Really well taken goal. Not last night, night before, sorry. But yeah, I don't know. I'm fearing for Leicester right now. I really am.
I just feel like on paper as well, like I know that Leicester fans probably go into it thinking that it's probably going to be a Leicester win, and Southampton were maybe not so optimistic about the game. But actually, if you look at the two teams and kind of the way they're playing and the form at the moment, they both kind of get some points maybe they're not expecting, go on a couple of games run, and then have a bit of a slump again. And they're both kind of similar in that sense. It kind of was both those teams meeting. And as we said, like Ralph has been playing some good football and then make some random decisions. And I know Richard has gone into that quite a lot, that he talks about that, and but then it's instantly the Hasenhüttl out like it was Ole out and stuff, but then he produces a performance like that, and it's like, they're doing something. If they could just stop being so leaky at the back, and maybe like Armstrong and stuff maybe being a bit more consistent up top. As you said, they're great to watch and they can really do some bits. So I think Southampton fans will be very happy with that result, and hopefully, there'll be some. Hopefully, at least they'll give Hasenhüttl another game. I doubt they will, but the fans should be taking some positive from that. And I think you're right. I think Leicester will be the by far the team which aren't happy, because they'll be thinking we're dropping points now. Something needs to change. And yes, they've had a few injuries, but with the squad that they have and how well they've done before, something needs to change, and Rodgers needs to get them working. So yeah. Right, we'll get on to the next one. I will let you start on this one because we're going to be talking about your team. So by all means, talk long. I talked a very long time about Manchester United. And I do say that every week, and I apologise, but I don't at the same time, because there's always lots to talk about on and off the pitch of United recently. But we're going to be talking about Chelsea-Watford. I'll pass over to you. It was 2-1 to Chelsea.
Right, how long have you got? So that first half especially was the worst I've seen Chelsea since Thomas Tuchel came in. It was abysmal.
Yeah.
We were so bad. We couldn't get a foothold on the ball. We couldn't string 3 passes together. And I'm not gonna just sit here and say, "Oh, we were terrible. We were terrible." Watford were immense. Watford were so good.
Credit where credit's due. Yeah.
Absolutely, they pressed so high. The intensity they played with, especially in that first half, that you could just see it. Our players were panicking because they pressed in numbers. We had it in the fullback spots. That's how we kind of like to play with the ball. We play out from the back. Centre backs and the fullbacks get a lot of the ball. That just wasn't happening. We was forced to go long. Obviously, Lukaku was on the bench. He's not going to hold the ball. Havertz can hold the ball, but not nearly as well. Yeah, and I was really worried in that first sort of opening 20-25 minutes where I felt like Watford were going to take the lead. We sort of managed to ride that out a little bit. Got the first goal through Mason Mount. Kai Havertz did really well. Alonso did really well actually for that goal, and it's so Marcos Alonso. It's so Marcos Alonso to be terrible all game going backwards. He's awful going backwards. When he's under pressure, he turns like a HGV. He's so slow. He's just not fluid, and we really miss Ben Chilwell. Ben Chilwell is so fluid in the attack, and he's a good defender, and he's quick enough to recover if he is out of position. But Alonso, he's just got one thing in his mind. He just wants to go forward, and he is great at it. I'm not gonna say he's not. He's good going forward, and he proved that because he had a big hand in both of the goals. Sorry. But yeah, it's just the most Marcos Alonso thing going. It's terrible all game. Pops up with a little sort of, it wasn't an assist, but he laid the ball onto Havertz, who laid the ball to Mount, and then Mount scored. They equalised through Dennis, who I thought was so good. Emmanuel
He's been
Dennis
good for a couple of weeks now. He had a couple of games where he was off the boil a little bit, but he's, if you're looking at him and Josh King, it's Josh King, even though he's been on really good form, that's been dropped, and Dennis is kind of the constant thing. When he was brought in the summer to do that job, he's just been doing bits for them.
Yeah, absolutely. For parts of the game, I'm not going to lie, he was just taking the piss with the ball. he was so good. He had Alonso on toast for that first half. Like Alonso looked like he just didn't know what to do, and he was winning fouls, nutmegs. He was so good for the entire game. And every time we got the ball, I was like, something's going to happen, and then he scored. and they deserved the goal. They really, really did. They were good for the goal, and no qualms there. Obviously, I would have liked for our performance to be a bit better, but we were a bit hit with injuries. We had no Reece James, obviously Ben Chilwell was out, no Kante, no Kovacic. Jorginho wasn't really fit. So in the middle, it was Loftus-Cheek, who obviously I rate really highly, and then Saul, who has started 2 games for Chelsea and been dragged at half-time in both of them, and rightly so. He was booked early on, and then every time he had the ball, I just felt like he was going to overplay and get sent off, and like trying to recover, pull a man down and get sent off. It just looks so dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I feel bad for him, because obviously there's a player in there. You don't have the sort of career and play for the clubs that he's played for without having, great ability, but something just isn't working. And I think we've probably seen the last of him, especially in the league, in a Chelsea shirt, which is unfortunate. But I know a lot of players need time. We just can't really afford passengers at this stage of the season when we've signed him to come in and make an impact when our other midfielders aren't available. So, yeah, arguably, I think he's probably done at Chelsea. I don't think we're going to sign him permanently. It's what it is. It's one of those, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the immediate way that scenario's happened, when I spring to my mind, is Thiago for Liverpool. Like, unbelievable world-class player. And then I know Thiago's different now, like especially last few weeks, he's been putting a run of form together. But when he first came in, he had like one good game, and then he didn't play. And when he did play, he just wasn't good at all and was making mistakes. And it's one of them, maybe just hasn't settled in as much, maybe over the summer with a potential move to United. Lots of other clubs, we see this happen all the time. He wasn't settled, and then maybe he's too eager, and that's how he's causing mistakes, and this stuff happens. In terms of the game itself, I think the biggest thing that I saw, and we try not to use it as an excuse too much in football, because you do have a very good set of other players as well. It doesn't always have to be your first team, but 6 changes to a team does do stuff into your starting lineup as well. He did look very, very shaky early on, and Tuchel said, it was like, is it my fault? Probably, but we just didn't play well. And as you said, it was that first half performance was terrible. And yeah, they literally did, like, it was Watford were going at them, fair play to Watford, and yeah, you just didn't know what to do. It was almost like they literally were like, they forgot how to pass, they forgot what football was, and they were just scared, like, really, wasn't it? Like, what to do to not make a mistake. Dennis with a great goal again, and he's just getting on and on and on. So that's kind of a fair play to him. I actually wanted to mention he came on as a sub, but I thought Danny Rose actually had a really good game when he came on from being a sub for Watford as well. He had a couple of chances and really seemed to impact the game a lot. I will say, however, there was a perfect opportunity, and maybe that would have changed the dynamic of the game. Sissoko for Watford had just such a good opportunity to make it 2-1. I think if that goes in, you might have really lost your heads and might have seen a different result to the game. So that's a big, big miss, in my opinion. And it's not the defense you're accustomed to. You've got a lot of injuries, but you have the talent there they've done it from other seasons. So yeah, I think Tuchel will be having a stern look at maybe who he plays and maybe so many changes and what he can do in the games that maybe he thinks are going to be slightly easier. And obviously, again, like on this one, there was another factor that came into this one as well. So this was the second game where there was another unfortunate incident in the crowd. So I think play was halted for 25 minutes in this one, so kind of similar times to that one as well. And again, that affects everything, as we said, staff, players, fans, everything in different ways. So that's a big factor to not talk about and bring up. Was there anything else you wanted to add on to that game, or?
No, not really. I just wanted to say, really, in both of these incidents that we see in the crowd, massive props to everybody involved in,
absolutely,
helping them out. Really, the players for alerting them, the medical staff and getting them over quickly.
Yep.
The referees for stopping the game.
Yeah, getting them off. Yeah.
And it was dealt with in the best way possible. It's horrible to see, but it was dealt with really well.
Absolutely. But yeah, we will come on to that at the end, because I think we've got a bit more to say about it, and it's just something that we will get into. But it's shocking to see so much, and especially 2 games literally within the same night. So that's crazy. The next game we're going to get onto, by all means, kick this one off again as well. And I feel like we do this every week, but again, quite far down. But again, we're going to be talking about another definite title challenger, the last one in that front 3, if you will, which is going to be City Villa. So it was 2-1 to City.
Yeah, Actually, again, I thought this was quite an enjoyable game. It was quite intense, high intensity, and I thought it was pretty close. Villa, I will say, I've been very impressed with under Gerrard since he got there. I actually went to my mate's a Palace season ticket holder. Went to Palace versus Villa a couple of weeks ago, and obviously Villa won 2-0, 2-1. Sorry, Villa was so good. They were so aggressive, so disciplined. Palace barely had a sniff. Martinez didn't have a save to make, and they kind of carried that game plan into this game. And I thought again they were disciplined. They were hard to beat, but obviously they're playing Man City. They're playing one of the best attacking teams in world football. Period. Probably one of the best teams we've seen in the Premier League of all time. And ultimately that just proved to sort of be the killer for Villa. Really, they were just a bit too good. Bernardo Silva, what a player he is, by the way. Yeah. I can't believe he was happy to leave at the start of the season, and Pep was happy for him to go. Look at him now. Look at how he's been this season.
Yeah. Exactly. I mentioned it, didn't I? I mentioned you on one of the Roundup episodes that I had that conversation with you, being like, is he the most underrated player in the Prem? Yes, because of literally going to be leaving. And then literally he's been under Pep Roulette, is the only one every single game. It's like that first name on the team sheet, basically.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. His goal again, it was such a good move, and then the finish at the end of it was so good. I think Villa looked decent in the second half. Obviously, it was close. While there's one goal in it, you feel like it could go either way. Edison made a really important save in the second half towards the end, and probably saved the point for City, which you don't hear too often. So it's all credit to Villa for that. But in the end, I do think the better team on the night did win.
Yeah, and I think so too. I think, like the game we just mentioned, actually, the Chelsea-Watford game, I think certainly at the beginning of the game, Villa were literally penned in. City were playing it around their penalty area and just like almost toying with their food. And then it was kind of very much different in the second half. Stunning goal from Silva. But yeah, also the quality of the cross from Gabriel Jesus as well is not to be not stated as well. Fantastic goal in general. Diaz, I want to quickly mention him. So Ruben Diaz's goal is not a goal you'd expect from a centre back. We see it all the time with like Fernandinho, or most notably normally a Rodri at the moment for them in that position. But you expect like a headed goal when you see him on, if you were looking on your phone and you saw the live score or whatever, you'd be like, that's a header. But yeah, great finish from him, very composed.
Yeah, was a great finish.
Yeah, the Villa goal, training ground goal, and executed great. So credit to them for it too. I think. Just to touch on your point again, I think we've said it, and Rich was kind of having that beef with the Aston Villa fans between the Southampton thing and at the start of the season, them thinking European football was on the cards. Excuse me. And as I said, under Dean Smith, that was never going to happen, and they had such poor form. Under Gerrard, they look completely refreshed and some new ideas, like Ashley Young playing a lot more. He's using a lot more of the team than was before, and the squad. So he's got ideas, and I do think come the rest of this year and come next season, so if he stays for a few seasons, Villa are going to get up there because he's proving his quality, and it's not I don't like people doing it's just the Scottish League, because what he did of Rangers was incredible as well. So there's something to go on there. And one other quick thing as well, the cons of pen, absolutely not a pen for me. Like it was like one of the debates in that match. And Villa had chances to pull it back, and but it's City at the end of the day. They're good at what they do. They're so well drilled and so well trained that it was just kind of playing out. The only other thing I wanted to quickly mention, which I didn't put on my notes, and I'll kind of come to you as well on a reactional piece, because obviously it was Mr. £100 million Jack Grealish's return to Villa Park, and he got a mixed response. And even when he was on the ball, there was a lot of boos and stuff. What do you make on that situation? It's very hard for us because we're not Villa fans, right? But in my opinion, I've seen it happen where, when someone says, and I know there's kind of links there as well, when someone says, oh, he's such a snake. I saw someone on another vlog thing being like, he's a snake. I hope, he gets injured and all these kind of things. And it's like, one, that's not okay. I don't hope players get injured anyway. But two, he was always going to leave. Like, if you're being a realistic Aston Villa fan, and I don't think he did it in a snaky way. Not like the immediate thing comes to my mind is Fabian Delph, like literally like captaincy, and then like the day after being like, yes, see ya. Like, that's the thing. When I think Grealish actually did it in quite a professional manner and did it in a, I've given you time, could have gone before, when they were going to go down. And then that, I will say, and Villa fans may hate it, but the wrongly, given goal was the deciding thing for them to stay up. If they'd done that, Jack Grealish might come to United that season. That was probably going to happen on the cards, right? But he then, you stayed in and he still didn't go. He stayed with you again. So it's one of them where I think he gave you another season, and I think it's difficult for fans. I mean, what do you think about it?
I kind of agree with what you're saying, but the one thing I also I do see both sides of the argument. I do see. Obviously, he gave so much to Villa. He was a boyhood Villa fan. Played with him all his life. He's been linked away so many times throughout. Even when early on, he had, like, when he was in the Championship, he had massive links to Spurs. After that, it obviously strong links to United. It actually came out the other day that he almost did join United, and he was really close. And then eventually went to City. And when City come calling with the squad they've got now, under probably one of the best managers of all time, how often are you going to turn that down? Really, the chance to win silverware. But I think the way he always came across as this through and through Villa fan,
I get what you're saying,
which he is. And I think the Villa fans kind of thought that his love for the club was worth more than him winning trophies. And in the end, it wasn't. So that's going to hurt if you're a Villa fan. And I completely understand. I don't necessarily agree with the booing. You can disagree with him leaving, but he didn't, as you say, he didn't do it in a nasty way. He was professional about it the whole time. So I don't see a problem there, but I do see how it can hurt if you're a Villa fan.
Absolutely, and I wanted to point out as well, like we've talked about it for several different clubs and different reasons as well. One, the factor of not many people, as much as we don't like that in some senses, aren't one club players anymore. That's just very rare that you find in the game. Two, you look at someone like, I know Danny Ings has played for other clubs. It's not the best example, but he was a boyhood Southampton fan as well. Then looked like he was going to become, get a new contract and renew. And he was like, I'm not going to leave unless it's Champions League. And then obviously goes to Villa as well and snakes them. And then one of the things I think is really interesting is also, if you're looking at it on the flip side, it's not how the board put that money and use that money is a different story. But Jack Grealish got sold for £100 million. So it's not like he's leaving his club with nothing either. He's, become the most expensive English signing. Like it's, he's doing something there, and they can replace him with 4 or 5 players, which they might need to replace someone like Jack Grealish and what he provided for the team. But and also a classy touch from Jack Grealish was I don't know if you saw this as well afterwards. He actually went over and did a lap of Villa Park and clapped all the home fans as well, even with the booing. And it wasn't all fans booing. Booing's obviously louder than clapping and lots of stuff. It was in the stadium. There was lots of smatterings of both fans literally standing next to each other, clapping and booing. So it's one of them. But yeah, I just thought it was an interesting point. Anyway, we will move on. The next game I've actually got down is a really interesting one because to talk about, because it actually wasn't on unless you were watching the game. It wasn't on anywhere apart from a really quick 2 minutes 30 highlights because there was no match of the day too. And obviously I was going to be watching the United game that was on. I know it started slightly earlier, but I was going to be watching that one. And I think most people were going to be watching the United Arsenal fixture rather than Spurs Brentford. No offense to those teams at all. Just saying how it is. So this was Spurs 2, Brentford 0. Do you want to kick off on this one?
I as you say, I was the same as you. I was watching the United game instead. I didn't watch the Spurs game. But I wanted to touch on Conte's impact as such. I know some of the results have been a bit questionable since he got there, but I think we're already starting to see a little bit of a shift in terms of the way that Spurs are playing, in terms of how disciplined they are. We all know what we've all seen Conte in the Premier League before. We've seen Conte at Inter. We know what his size, how he likes to play, and we know there's a lot of discipline involved. And we know he won't stand for those kind of players that don't want to put it in and don't want to work hard for the team, because he has no problem just getting rid of you. He did it with Diego Costa at Chelsea. He has no problems falling out with anybody, because no one's ego is bigger than his in that dressing room. That's how it should be. You need to be listened to as a manager. So I think we're starting to see that already. Harry Kane obviously hasn't been massively amongst the goals since he got there. I mean, he has in Europe and stuff like that, but he hasn't in the Premier League quite as much, but his performances seem to be perking back up. You see, he looks good. Son is just Mr. Consistent, isn't he? He's always a 7 out of 10, even when he's not scoring a goal. He obviously got a goal this week. And to be fair, I don't think Brentford could be too disheartened with what happened. Obviously, they played against a good Spurs side, and I think this is where they are currently in the season is probably better than a lot of Brentford fans would have hoped for.
Absolutely.
They had a solid start to the season, and they still look good. They're another side that play good football, high intensity football, and as long as you do that, and as long as you do that without hemorrhaging goals, you're probably going to do all right in the Premier League. So yeah, I think the signs are pretty decent for Brentford at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've talked about it in the Roundup review quite a lot. Is that Brentford had a much higher start to the season that they were expected to, put an incredible run of form together, and have still been picking up the odd game here and there, like last week, when they might not have been expecting to. So you're going to go to Spurs. I don't think they would have been going there to necessarily win. They might have, hoped for a draw, but it is what it is. As you said on the Kane thing, yeah, he hasn't picked up on the Prem still yet, but he's providing a lot more. It's almost like Son's the main striker at the moment, and he's doing the assists, and his movement's still unbelievable. There was one bit of play which didn't come to a goal, but he just gets it in the box, and his movement's just incredible still. Like, what he's providing is next level. But it was the Son show, wasn't it, this week? And it also seems to be, Son is very consistent, as you said, but I always seem to find that Kane and Son can be on form at the same time, but if Kane's off form, Son even seems to take that on upon him and get that step up again. It was his cross for the first goal that was actually an own goal off Canos, but got the Spurs player in it. It was it's just a constant threat, constantly making the runs, pulling players out of positions and doing that. And the goal that they scored was a nice goal, but actually the best part of that goal, I think, is the Harry Kane initial pass out, because it dissects the defense and takes the ball wide, and then it's just an easy cross into Son, like, for the goal. So it's Harry Kane setting that all up there. And I think what you're saying is fair. You can start to see the Conte effect. I said, compared to some people saying that not necessarily as strongly, I said I think Conte is going to be a real force. Obviously, that from having him as your manager, and I know you weren't particularly happy about him coming in to manage Spurs. That anybody that's disregarding what Conte's done, any manager that comes in and wins the Premier League first time round is unbelievably scary to have that mentality and to put that vision in place, no matter what squad you inherit. So that's something to say. And I will say, actually, I think it was big 3 points for Spurs, because they've been very hit and miss in games. They're starting to pick it up, but they're still grinding out draws, having some horrendous results in, is it the Europa Conference are they in? Not even the Europa League.
Yeah, the Conference League. Like
the game last week when they literally let the last minute goal in, like 94th minute. And Conte was fuming, and it's that stuff. I can imagine. It's that stuff that he'll root him out, and as you said, he'll be like, "I can't trust you anymore. You didn't work hard enough," and he'll find that squad that he wants to do again. I say this a lot, but he's only been there a few weeks. Like, it's going to take time to settle in. And I think after Christmas, maybe even a little bit of money, I think he's going to have somewhere in that contract that he's going to spend money in January. We'll see what happens.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting him saying that. Sorry. I think it's interesting him coming out in the media and saying he knows this is his biggest challenge yet. So make of that what you will. Maybe he's trying to get a bit of fight from the players. And it could be very effective. Some players thrive on that kind of thing. They think we need to step our game up here. We need to show this man that we can play for him. Where Conte's involved, I'm always a bit worried, especially when he takes over one of your biggest rivals. I mean, I'm not concerned about where Spurs are going to finish this season. I don't really care. I just would rather they didn't do very well.
I know your thoughts. I think, and the last point I was saying is the whole, I was going to say, sorry, backtracking on myself, getting something out of the players extra from what he said, but also, even though he's been supposedly asked for something ridiculous, like 250 million in budgets or something, is supposedly why he signed again. Maybe he's also trying to squeeze a little bit extra from the kitty in January as well. It's a message to the board too. So I just want to say, back onto the points and how that is, Spurs are sitting sixth. They're not at all doing badly. So considering they've had a lot of draws and people are, some of them are writing them off and saying they're not doing as well, above United, above lots of other teams that are looking, good at the moment. So the
Yeah.
more that they keep grinding results out and keep getting slowly better and better, and more the philosophy seeps into Spurs, then you're gonna see them get even better, I think. So we will move on. So a game which I think I said last week, and is similar for both of these teams. I didn't think we'd be so far down in the running order. Was West Ham Brighton, which was 1-1. When you think these two teams both had both teams with crazy good starts to the seasons. I haven't got tons and tons of notes. The main thing I wanted to point out, the Souček goal passed everyone, including Sanchez, but it was very poor defending.
Absolutely.
Sanchez should have done better in his positioning, but also the defense should have done better. In general, it was just a mishap from everyone. Even though I was singing Sanchez's praise last week after coming back from red card because he got me 8 points in fantasy league. I think he still got 4 this week because he had a lot of saves to make. But something to point out. And on the other end, Fabianski had a brilliant save in that game. And it was a great move from Brighton to stop the first goal. And again, that might have kicked on differently. So, fair play to him when he was called into action. He came up trumps with that. The West Ham goal, this is an interesting one that we can have a debate about. From the replays and stuff, I feel if it's a small touch, and I think Gary Lineker joked it was like brushing off his sock or something, it's like, does it go over his boot? Is there a touch? Does it, how much is on there? I don't know. But if VAR have seen it, I think it could be either way. Like VAR have given it, but if you're a opposing fan, if you're a Brighton fan, you're going to be aggrieved by it either way. Like it's one of them controversial ones.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is one of those. Actually, it depends what side of the fence you sit on. Really, if you're a West Ham fan, you're gonna protest that it's a goal.
It's contact. Yeah.
If you're a Brighton fan, then you're gonna be the other way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's such a small thing, and it's exactly, it's a brush. It's the tiniest brush. So yeah, I have no qualms with it really.
Yeah, and then the last kind of point I have to make was another also about the goal. Mopé, unreal strike again, and I think he said it in a. I think I quickly skipped through and I caught. I don't normally watch most of them, but some of the post-match interviews where they're like, oh, brilliant goal. How are you feeling? And he's like, oh, well, most people are telling me I'm the worst striker in the Premier League, and then I do that. So he's kind of talking his fans down. And yes, some weeks he hasn't been good, and he has been dropped and hasn't been in the starting lineup and stuff. So obviously Graham Potter is trying it out, but Mopé is their most dangerous threat. Lamptey's come back, and again, he had a bit part to play because he's come back from a really bad injury, so they're not trying to rush him completely into that squad, but he looks super bright. But also, like last week when I was talking about how, fans were booing and being really unhappy with getting a draw and Brighton being where they are, which was ridiculous. Again, Brighton have picked up another point against the team which is very high up in the league at the moment. So I don't think if you're a Brighton fan, you can have any complaints that you're doing, again, like Brentford, we said, but even more so, I think, doing even more better than you would have thought possible if you were coming into last into this season. So, yeah, fair play to them.
100%. I'm glad you touched on that, actually. I think last week when they were booing and Graham Potter obviously showed how disappointed he was with the fans booing and spoke out about it in the press afterwards. Rightly so, exactly. I think he's doing such a good job there. And I've said this about a couple of teams tonight, but the football Brighton are playing is
great to watch.
It's so good to watch. So good to watch. I think the way Potter's got on playing, it's a breath of fresh air, really. I don't think Brighton fans would have seen that coming before Potter got there. The one thing, you touched on this as well, the one thing that people sort of will say about Brighton in a negative way is that they don't have that killer striker. Obviously, Mopé is a good level striker, scores some great goals, and he's probably a favourite among the fans for his antics of shithousery all the time, which I like. I like a player with a bit of bite, but is he going to score you that like in the high teens, the low 20s? Is he going to get you that many goals a season? Probably not. So I think maybe that's an area where they're lacking. You also touched on Tariq Lamptey, who obviously just coming back from injury. Last week he was phenomenal. This week came off the bench, got an assist. He is such a good. Sorry, is that the dog back there?
That's all right. Yeah. He's making an appearance.
Yeah, he's just another one of those right backs from the Chelsea academy. I don't know where they seem to be pulling him from. but yeah, if they can keep him fit, they'll be laughing, really.
Yeah.
And West Ham in a very tough run of fixtures right now. Obviously beat Liverpool a few weeks back. They've just lost to Man City, and then this weekend they've got Chelsea at home. So if they can pick up something from Chelsea at home, I think that'll be a massive result, a massive result for them. Obviously, they've already qualified for the Europa League, the top of the group, so that the game in midweek they don't really have to worry about too much, and then it's Burnley next week, the week after. So if they can come out of this period with a point or 3 against Chelsea, then they'll be laughing.
Yeah, I think some West Ham fans might be a bit disappointed because they think they would have picked up points against Brighton and stuff considering the start. But I think exactly what you said. If you look back on it retrospectively, which is obviously a hard thing to do, but if you manage to get something in the next couple of games, say they get a win against Burnley and they pick up a draw against you or something, then you'd look back and go, that's a very good, set of points for him. And I think Moyes kind of reflects that. He's kind of in his interviews is a bit nonchalant and a bit like, well, it could have gone really badly, but it could have gone better, and this could happen and stuff. But I think they're both Potter and Moyes from that game would have taken it. And yes, it was really late on the Mopé goal, but that happens and they switched off, and that's football, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Cool. We'll move on. We've got a couple of games left. I'll let you start on this one if you want. So the next one I've got down here was Norwich Newcastle. So literally the battle of the bottom two.
Yeah. Well, Newcastle without a win still. All season long. You can have. I think January is going to be massive for them, isn't it? Really. It's probably going to decide whether they go or whether they stay. It's not looking good for them right now. Realistically, you look at this game as a relegation battle already, didn't you? Really, with the way they're playing. But having said that, Norwich are already looking better under Dean Smith.
Yep, no, agreed.
They're actually playing the players that they've got on loan, Billy Gilmore, Brandon Williams. Like if things are going that badly for you, and you've got these loan players from
why don't you play them?
Why are you not playing them? Because clearly, like they're there for a reason. They're there to help you out and keep you up, and they're there for their own development. So it's a waste if you're not playing them. What's the point in them being there? But yeah, I think they're already looking better than they were under Farker. So potentially the right decision to say goodbye to him. But yeah, it was another one of those games. It was really really close, really hard fought, and Pookie rescued Norwich with an absolute belter. Especially with Newcastle down to 10 men, but that would have been massive for Newcastle. They could have got the 3 points with 10 men.
Yeah, that shows something.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really have too much more to say about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I got a few points. Like, first of all, silly red card so early on. He clearly pulls him back. If your last man, which you could easily be in that scenario, and he was, then you're screwing yourself and screwing your team because you're giving a very long time to play for 10 men, which is difficult because you have to make changes early on, and it doesn't always work out very well, and it's more damage limitations at that point normally if you've got 10 men on the pitch. The penalty shout that for Newcastle with the trailing leg, yeah, we say it a lot, but it could have gone either way. The handball for the pen, he's jumping, his arms coming down. Yeah, like Wilson, was lucky to convert actually for the pen. In my opinion, he gets hands to it, and it wasn't the best penalty you've ever seen, but that's how penalties go. Pookie, I think he's really found his feet in the last couple of weeks again, and kind of the same way along with since Dean Smith's coming in. Like I think he's going to be more trusted again, and he's finding form at the right time for the new manager. I think one thing you touched on is. He's done a lot better. I think and this is going to sound really harsh, but I think it's probably not going to sound less harsh than it was before. Like I said, Norwich were going to come absolutely dead last on the relegation zone. And I think most people agreed with me. With Dean Smith coming in, I still think they're going to get relegated, but maybe he can get them second to last or the last or, the closest to the zone. But you know what? That's still something, and that's proving that you've got a fight in them and proving most people wrong, but they're putting you dead last anyway. So if they can do that, that's showing something. Dubravka made a huge save for Newcastle in that game as well. Like he's had some doubters in the last couple of weeks, but he kind of turned up again. An interesting one. I heard this and I was like, oh, okay. I know they haven't been in it like crazy amounts, but I was like, Norwich have never won a Premier League match on Tuesday. Is a stat for you ever. So they were destined not to. Apparently, that was the way that went. It was vital points for both sides. You would have said that going into it, Newcastle would have seen them as this is Norwich and we should take them. But in recent weeks, you wouldn't have said that because of the form that they've been in. So, but yeah, we said still no win for Newcastle is the biggest thing. They have to get some points. Like I said, excuse me, I think they have to buy a defender in January and they have to buy a lot of other players, depending how much they're willing to spend. We know that they can spend it because of the financial fair play rules, because they haven't before, so they can literally throw money at players.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. Like I've, talked to a lot of people, including you, like who I think their first signing is going to be, like big signing, and not Mbappe, like people keep saying. But I said it. I think it could be Coutinho. Actually, one that I think could happen now, because I was listening to Rio's Vibe at 5 podcast where they've got Fabrizio Romano on every week now to talk, and obviously if Fabrizio is saying stuff, it's pretty much gospel these days, especially around transfer talk. And they were talking about Dembele from Barcelona and his whole contract situation there, and lots of clubs been interested in him, wanting him. But the thing that they were saying, which was the most crazy thing, is apparently he wants something like 20 million a year. There ain't going to be many clubs in the world that can afford that, and Newcastle certainly would be that team to potentially throw that kind of money at him. So who knows? But yeah, interesting. Yeah, Eddie Howe needs to do some magic and pull them up and get some points on the board. If not, they're going down. And that, as we said all before, richest club in the world by an extremely long way, being in the Championship is rather funny on one sense, but you feel bad for Newcastle in another sense, because people have said it. If there's kind of a team that deserves it, they'd be in the running for it with the fans and the loyalty and stuff they have. We'll move on. Second to last game, or the last game with goals in it anyway, was the Leeds Palace game, which was 1-0 to Leeds. I'll let you kick off on this one.
Yeah, this, first of all, that's a big win for Leeds.
Massive.
That is a massive win for Leeds. Obviously, that there's been question marks around how they would perform this season, if they could keep up the same style of football that they did last season. The early signs were no, no, they can't. And obviously, they stylistically, I think they've changed a bit as well. There seems to be a bit more. It's kind of ironic because there seems to be a bit more discipline and a bit more structure to the way they're playing now, but their results are worse than they were last season. So maybe they should just play that kind of football. They just be 100% pressing all the time, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, I think that was a huge win for Leeds. Rafinha coming up with the goods again. I know he scored a penalty, but I think for the whole game, he was probably the best player on the pitch.
Still a goal, yeah.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. I think he's so good, and he's so vital to that side. I was disappointed with Palace. I'm not going to lie. I've really liked what they've done this season. I've really liked the way they've been playing under Vieira. It's like a completely different side to we saw with Hodgson last season, and it's such a breath of fresh air. And I know my best mate's a Palace fan. I know a lot of Palace fans, and I've seen a lot online that they're very, very happy with what Vieira's doing there. Why wouldn't you be? The way they're playing. I know they sort of dropped down the table a little bit, but if you look at the fixtures they had for the first 10 or so games, they had the toughest start of any side, like based on league position from last season. They had the toughest start of any side in the league, and they did pretty well with that. Obviously, they've lost a couple on the bounce now. Before that, they had only lost to Liverpool and Chelsea, and then who's not going to lose to Liverpool and Chelsea this season outside of the top 6? Do you know what I mean? I think Conor Gallagher is playing his way back into that Chelsea side. I absolutely think he is. I think Palace fans are holding out hope that he's going to stay. They're going to sign him on a permanent, but I think the way he's playing, I don't think there's any way he's not in that Chelsea squad next season. Yeah. If not starting every game, he's going to be in and around it for sure. But yeah, I guess the main takeaway from this is such a huge win for Leeds, but must be devastating if you're a Palace fan, if you've travelled to that game, to lose in the 93rd minute to a penalty is to a hand, but it's such a stupid mistake as well from Mark Gurhey. The way you don't need to lead with your arm like he led with there. It's a definite penalty. But yeah, hard lines really. I guess unlucky, but credit to Leeds for coming up with the win.
I mean, yeah, I'll start there. There's so with the pen, yeah, it's absolutely clear, and it's again another time that they've seen it like Arsenal, where they've dropped points from a last minute, literally last thing of the game, that they're doing something wrong, conceding, which is heartbreaking for a fan and a manager and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, the pen from Rafinha, super cool taken as well. Like he almost like baits the keeper out early. He does like a double stumble with a hop, skip, and a jump, and the last bit is what kills him. And it's like, yeah, okay, fair enough. But he's, I think I said a few episodes ago, it's like half Leeds goals this season have come from Rafinha. So like they lose him and they are screwed. And I know he's been out a little bit, but that's just the way it is. Yeah, huge game. As you said, like huge game for Leeds because they picked up some massive points. I think they will slowly get better. They're clearly doing the classic second season syndrome absolutely this season and getting battered most of the time. But I think with the additions of Dan James and stuff, they're going to start finding more of their regular first team. And they had injuries. Calvin Phillips was out for a very long time, and stuff like that. So it does affect the team. Mistakes from people really. Both teams have massive chances. Benteke should have scored. He had a really good opportunity, and we've said that a few times recently. I like the fact he's playing a lot more under Vieira. But we said last week that they've got Edouard and stuff on the bench who's unbelievably clinical and looking sharp as well. So you've got other options. I think there was mistakes from most people, and that's kind of it. It was kind of who's going to make mistakes in that match, which we say a lot about. Really kind of slog-festy games. The two things I want to point out at the end. We'll get on to the last one, which I want to touch on quickly, which is not so good. But the last thing I was going to say quickly on the kind of game and the form was that ever since Villa got their 7-game unbeaten streak broken, I think they have been in this slump, as we said. Like when after that Villa game, like we said, how high could they go? And they kind of proved everyone wrong and playing this, as you said, complete opposite football compared to Hodgson, like defensive, hit them on the counter attack. They've been playing some really, really beautiful attacking football, looking a lot brighter and always looking for what they can do next. They just, a bit like Southampton, can't finish games out is kind of their Achilles heel at the moment. But yeah, I think they have to get a win quick to kind of stop that slump. Otherwise, I can see them escalating, and then we'll see what Vieira is really made of, because can he do something to change that? And that's the thing. I think he's proved people wrong so far, but it takes, a really decent manager to stop a run spiraling out of control and get them instantly back into winning ways again. Last thing I want to touch on before my voice starts going, which it already slightly is a really not so good point in the match as well, which you're touching on. Conor Gallagher, fantastic player, most people's fantasy league team, and he's been unbelievable. But there was sadly some homophobic chants directed at Conor Gallagher, and the Leeds board and club have come out and obviously said we don't condone any of this, which absolutely we should. In a rainbow laces week as well. Like it's just, not what you want to see. And there's been some disgusting comments and stuff made. And again, we've talked about it before. We talked about it very much on your episode of My Club, actually. And it's, I just wanted to touch on that and say, obviously, absolutely don't condone that. We hope that you stop people that are doing it. Obviously, don't put yourself in danger. We said that every time, but yeah, your club doesn't stand for it, and we shouldn't be standing for it. So let's root that out of the game, and nobody should be subjected to that kind of chance at a football pitch or anywhere. So let's stop that. The last game, I literally have some really quick things to touch up on, which was Wolves Burnley. I mean, have you got anything or?
Not. There's not a great deal to talk about, is there? It was one of those
slogfest.
Could have put you to sleep.
Yeah.
Traore came closest. He hit the bar.
Yeah.
It was a good chance. It was unlucky, really. Traore is a funny one. He's a strange player. He has absolutely everything you need to be a world-class winger or attacking player. He just doesn't. We don't see that anywhere near enough. We don't, and the end product obviously has never really been there. Yeah. He's had one or two purple patches in his career in terms of like goals and assists and whatever. But largely throughout his career, his impact has been off the bench. He's come off the bench and he's changed the game. That's where his impact has been. And with the skill set he's got, that's not the sort of player he should be. He should have that team. He should have that team on his back, realistically. And perhaps we're seeing maybe why he didn't make it at the top level with the top sides. Obviously, he was at Barcelona's academy. He was with Barcelona while he was young. Maybe that's why he didn't make it there. But yeah, I think he's one of those players. He's got absolutely everything. We just don't see it anywhere near enough.
Yeah, I think that was like my biggest note. Actually, the literally the two things I had for the games. We'll start off there, and then I'll quickly jump onto Troyer as well. It was just a classic slogfest. That classic, like there's going to be a Premier League game which is 0-0, and it was more about lots of half chances, like shots kept getting deflected or just denied or just pushed past, or like it was one of them. So that was it for the game. But Troyer itself, I've got like two things to talk about with him quickly. One of them, I think he's got absolutely everything, as you said, just apart from finishing. Like, if he could finish, he'd probably be one of the most elite people in the game because he's just so explosive and he has, that wing play and stuff. Like you see him at times when he puts a good runs of form together, but he'll have loads of shots in the game or he'll have loads of this and he never has the end product, and it must be so frustrating. And two, on him, which is a real thing, which people sometimes think people are joking when they say this, was actually listening to a really interesting piece on this about Ronaldo, actually, about someone that he studied with at a training academy and was at United at the time, how he bulked up and built his muscle in his body, and that transformation from a really skinny kid at Sporting to what he is today. And they kind of touched on Troyer as well, not in by name, but in his attributes and how he is. There's such a thing as you're too powerful for your body to handle, and he injures himself so much because look at the size of the guy. Like he literally could be like, beast. You wouldn't look out of place in an NFL rugby or like a WWE match, mate. You put him in he literally is that physique, but because he's so quick and so explosive, he gets so many hamstring injuries. No wonder, because he's so quick, but he's like rupturing his own body. And sometimes he just can't keep that power in his body and ends up hurting himself. So he not only can't really get the final product, but he's also doing that half the time as well, which obviously stops all that situation you've got as well. But yeah, that was a bit of a snooze fest in this one. And as I said, we've had a lot of goals in the Prem recently, so it's very rare that we're getting these 0-0s, but when they come up, you're like, oh God, yeah. So that's kind of it for the games this week. So yeah, some exciting games, and obviously games are coming thick and fast over the festive period anyway. So there's going to be a lot of football to talk about. I just really wanted to quickly touch on again what we spoke about earlier for kind of an after story, and then we'll kind of end on this one. But is there anything else you kind of want to touch on? So we've had a lot of, like, it's been a thing since the Euros, and obviously with Christian Eriksen, the whole situation that happened there was kind of the big spark of it, and it's coincidental that you're seeing all the stuff, but it's kind of been in the limelight so much recently. And actually, a quick note, it was a very, very nice touch at the Ballon d'Or that the doctor that saved Christian Eriksen's life was honoured, and so he should be. Because that is something that should be pointed out as, absolute heroes that are at the stadiums every week that don't necessarily get the limelight in all the kind of staff there and the medical staff. But yeah, we've seen 3 times since then in the Premier League alone this season. We're not even halfway through yet, which has happened, and 2 in the same week is unbelievable. So I kind of wanted to just put out there and just say a few things, which was, one, like, just be aware of your fellow fans around you if you are going to games. Like, if you see someone in distress, let's try and help them. We've seen how quickly staff and referees and everything can get to these situations. Alert someone, they can alert the staff, and actually, we've seen a lot of players stepping up as well to get involved in these situations, to get them stopped as well, which is brilliant, because they need to get medical attention, and immediately, because the quicker you are, the more likelihood you're going to save that person's life. And I touched on this quickly before in a previous episode, but I wanted to say again, and it's something that I feel really passionate about after watching a lot of non-league football on like #United, and I used to go to a lot of non-league football when I was younger as well for the club that I supported. I got to go watch them for free every week because I was part of their kind of youth setup that they had there. But it's for non-league especially, like, every ground, in my opinion, should be having a defibrillator. And it's a 100%. Thing that we went around, and there was a petition, and I think it's still out if you want to search for it. But including non-league, they should have a defibrillator at every ground that there's going to be any kind of sporting event held at. And I think it's super important that we get the government to make sure that, whether it's through funding from them or what it's going to be from charities, something has to happen to make sure that people are safe. And if this doesn't highlight it, I seriously don't know what does to be any more. And the last thing, I'm not going to lecture anyone before I hand it over to you. Sorry, Jamie. I'm not going to lecture anyone on here and tell people how to live their lives and stuff. But if you are going to a game regularly, and this stuff does happen, if you're that person that's inclined to learn a bit about it, you can literally just look online, and even if you watch the 5-minute course or just got yourself more aware of what to do in that situation of basic CPR, you could end up saving someone's life one day as well. Again, that's not forcing that onto anybody. If that is, you're inclined to be that kind of person, you know, that's just something to consider. I mean, if you've got anything else you kind of want to finish on this subject, just it's worth bringing up.
I think that's really well said. Before I'll end it positively, but before I do, I want to say that we saw at the Chelsea game. It came out afterwards that there were a couple of fans that were making some comments when obviously the Watford fan was going through what he was going through, which must have been such an ordeal for him. And they're both okay now. Both of those fans are okay that suffered the cardiac arrests. They've both been released from hospital, which is great news. But there were a couple of fans that were making some comments saying, get on with the game. One of them supposedly said, just let him die. And it's just disgraceful. It's not the sort of thing you want to see. You want to see at a football match. Someone's life is at stake here. Like who cares about the football and that? Like when something like that is happening. So yeah, I hope they're singled out, and I hope that they're banned. Really, they don't deserve to be in a ground if that's their attitude. Because imagine if everybody's attitude was like that, then you know, not potentially those guys who had the heart attacks might not be here now.
Absolutely.
And before we go, obviously, I just want to say that that I've touched on this earlier, but the way it was handled, how quickly everybody responded to it, from the fans around, the fans that were struggling, and then the players alerting the medical staff, pointing out the fan, and then abandoning the game as quickly as possible, not abandoning, but suspending the game as quickly as possible, getting them to the hospital. And you know, I'm sure that was absolutely vital in their recovery and how quickly they've been released from hospital. So you know, mad props to everybody involved in making that so quick and seamless.
No, absolutely. And again, exactly the same sentiments from me. Unbelievable from the staff, from everybody around there, and including ambulance staff, and when they get to hospital as well. Like, everybody's doing such an amazing job. And as I, not to take away from the positive note, but let's just say, as we said before, obviously the health of the fans and everybody involved is much more important than the football itself. That shouldn't have to be said, but apparently there's people out there like those fans that need to be told that. But that's really all I've got for this week. It's been a really fascinating episode for lots of different reasons, for controversy on the pitch, stuff we've never seen before. But you know, that's why we love football, isn't it? You don't know what's going to happen, otherwise it'd be boring. So I just want to say, first of all, a massive thank you to you, Jamie, for coming on and being on the episode of the Roundup Review.
My pleasure, mate. Yeah, I'm sure your views are going to plummet now that I've been on the channel.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We'd love to have you on again soon, and hopefully we're going to with a special video I've got coming up. But I'm sure you'll be on for more regular Roundup reviews as well. So I just want to say thank you very much for everybody watching. I know this has probably been a quick turnaround in terms of content coming out with the games coming thick and fast, but I thought I could be that guy that just lets a week slip, or I could just get an episode out. So we've done that, and me and Jamie have been scurrying to fit all the games in and do all our little notes and research while we can, to make sure that we try and bring you some at least decent, or half decent content. I won't call us decent. And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone watching again. If you have been liking this, don't forget to hit the like button down below, because it really helps us out and lets us know you've been enjoying the content. Get involved in the comments if you want to. We're always happy to jump in and have a debate about anything you want to talk about. That's part of being in a community, that we have discussions. Don't forget to subscribe as well, because if you're liking this content, then we're going to be doing it. It generally is kind of 2 videos a week, including the Roundup review and then a My Club or some special reviews coming out. So there's lots of content coming. So if you're subscribed, it will come straight to your feed and you don't have to worry. And the same thing, if you hit that notification bell up top, you'll be actually told when the next video goes live. If you're like me and you watch quite a lot of YouTube, sometimes keeping up on when videos are coming out and being published is quite difficult. So that gives you a really easy automatic view. But yeah, I'm gonna shut up now, because it's probably run on longer than it has already. So big thanks to you again, Jamie. And we've been loving all the content and loving all the football that's been happening. So literally, we're back into it tomorrow morning again. So I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. I hope your team does well if it's not against my team. And thank you very much for watching again. Enjoy some football. We'll catch you later. Thanks very much.